This blueberry bush is a little bit confused. It is February right now and it looks like it is fall on this blueberry bush. Like, check this out. Full on red and burgundy leaves. The leaves are falling, but it still has a lot of original leaves from the fall compared to every other blueberry bush in the garden. The one over here has no leaves. The previous one had no leaves. This blueberry bush suffered a trauma. In the first year I planted it, I accidentally weed whacked it down to a 2-leaf stem, and ever since then it has had very strange growing patterns. It seems to produce at different times than the other blueberries, loses its leaves at different times, and flowers at different times, which isn't a bad thing, but it is strange. Garden Tour Saturday is a collab hosted by the one and only Grandma Sandy. Go check her out. She does garden tours every Saturday. And co-hosted by the lovely Suffolk Susie and Patricia N. Cube. Here is a little overview of what the backyard garden looks like today in early February of 2024. At the bottom here, right here, these are raspberry bushes. I actually never planted these. These have been here for, I'm going to say, about 8 years, and they came from the neighbor's raspberries. Right on the other side of the fence, the neighbors have huge raspberry bushes that have been there much longer than my garden has existed. And very early on, they self-seeded into my garden. At first, I tried to get rid of them because they were growing in the grass. And then I decided, embrace it. If nature planted them, let them grow. Most years they do produce raspberries, and they're a completely different variety than all of the ones in my vegetable garden, so that is super cool. And right behind them, this is one patch of my alpine strawberries. They're ever-bearing and produce for most of the year, minus the winter. You will notice that when we go a little closer on the slope, there are a ton of creeping phlox plants here. I didn't buy these. These are all divisions from my creeping phlox in the front garden. I have a ton of creeping phlox in my original garden, and these were all either propagations or transplants, and there are a lot of them here. Venturing onto the slope now, let's take a look at these tiny plants that are growing here. I have some propagations from my rock rose. Right here we have an arbutria or arbrecia. I can never pronounce the plant name. It is absolutely thriving. This is not one that I propagated. I do have other abrecias in my yard. This one I purchased, and it was because the color is different. I didn't have any of this purple color before, so now I have it, and I can't wait to see what it looks like when it blooms. Moving along, I have this plant, and honestly, I don't know what it is. I threw a whole bunch of mystery flower seeds on the slope. If you know, please leave your guesses in the comments below. Whatever it is absolutely thriving here, so I hope it's something that I like. Here is a little snow in summer transplant or propagation. This came from the mother plant that I will show you shortly. I have a ton of these. I did a little video on how to divide snow in summer. If you missed it, I'll link it in the description. I have lots of different strawberry propagations or transplants on this bank. They are not all my alpine strawberries. I've got different varieties growing here and there. This is my mother snow in summer plant where I did my divisions from, doing really well, and there are little baby snow in summers growing everywhere. You guys, guess what? I just spotted a flower. I'm so excited. I truly didn't think there were any flowers blooming in this garden right now. I'm quite certain this is the only flower blooming, so let me show you. Right here, this little arbutria or arbrecia is the very first flower blooming of 2024 in the back garden. There's another bud about to open. This is a white arbrecia, and no, it is not a transplant. This was also purchased because I didn't have this color in my collection. It is thriving here, planted last year, and I'm so excited about the bloom. That makes my heart so happy. We have some alyssum that I actually need to pull out. It is looking rather scraggly on my to-do list. And right here, I think this is a alyssum, the golden version of alyssum, goldenrod it might be called. I can't remember. This was planted when I first renovated this bank. And it is thriving this season, so I can't wait for it to bloom. If you can confirm the identity of this plant, let me know. I think it is a perennial alyssum, not 100% certain though. Here is my candy tuft ground cover. This is one of my original ones in this garden. I've had it for, I'm gonna say at least 3 years, long before the slope was renovated. And I think it is starting to get its little flower blooms forming. So exciting. It is doing super well here. A very, very vigorous ground cover, evergreen and super beautiful. Here is a little sedum. This is definitely a sedum ground cover. I can't remember if this was a transplant or if I bought this one, but it is thriving in this location. Lots of new growth. Can't wait to see it bloom. We're going to look at some of the random greenery that is growing on this bank. Here, there are a ton of poppies that have sprouted. They are absolutely everywhere. Some of these poppies came from the seeds from my front garden, which is a rock garden that is full of California poppies, and others were random poppy seeds that I purchased, and I don't even remember what is what. So I'm really curious to see what it's going to look like this spring, summer. It's going to be colorful. There are lots of little flower seedlings on this bank. I'm not sure what this is, but it's reminding me of a snapdragon, so I really hope that's what it is. That would be so beautiful. We're going to take a quick look at one of my bulb beds and a little garden that I constructed this winter. This is one of my spring blooming flower beds right here where you see the mushrooms under this cherry tree. There are all kinds of bulbs that have started to sprout pretty much everywhere. There are lots of daffodils in here. This is yarrow coming back from last season. That is actually a seed, not a bulb. There are more daffodils, more daffodils. There are daylilies towards the back. It is really just full of color, this border here. Well, the color is coming. You will see it later in the season. Right beside the bulb bed, I have this newly constructed garden. This I'm calling the Circle of Life garden. There are circles of rocks around all of the different plants in here. This little garden is a memorial I made for my garden supervisor who passed away almost a month from today, and many of his ashes are sprinkled in here. There are several strawberry plants in here. They are covered in frost right now, but I needed to incorporate a little bit of food in this garden because he loved to munch from my garden. Lettuce, strawberries, squash leaves. He ate a lot of garden produce. We also have some windmill palms in here. They were growing right beside my patio and needed to be transplanted, so we just moved those a little further apart. And ferns. Zipper absolutely loved ferns on his walks. These are the native ferns on Vancouver Island. He used to stick his nose in them and never want to leave. So I have 3 that I transplanted from my vegetable garden into his little garden. And right here, this was where Zipper's hole was. He had a hole that looked like a lazy boy recliner in the dirt. And I have a lot of his ashes underneath this frog. And this is really his spot. He loved this spot in the garden. There are also crocosmia bulbs in here. These were fresh growths before the snow, not even from last season. I'm gonna have to cut them off and see what happens. Don't know if they'll bloom this year, but there are lots of crocosmia in this bed as well. This is a lovely stepping stone that was a gift from my neighbor. It was very kind. And this is in his garden because it is all about him. Let's take a little walk further over into the garden. This is my 5 variety plum tree, and it is just starting to form its flower buds all over the tree. It looks like it's going to have a very abundant flower season, so that is super exciting. This is my cottage garden, and in the fall I did a bulb planting experiment with tulips. I will link that video in the cards or the description. We're going to take a look and see if there's any tulip sprouts. Did my rodent repelling experiment work out? Let's find out now. You guys, there are sprouts. Look at this. This is so exciting. I actually have tulip sprouts, and there are more. I'm going to show you. I'm so thrilled because if you heard my story in the bulb planting video, I didn't have a lot of success in the past because of rodents, and my repellent has worked. I am over the moon excited. There are a ton of little sprouts everywhere. There's some here around this little poppy. Behind my rose, just starting to come out of the ground. In between the dusty millers, there are tulips. There are even more sprouts than I'm going to show you today, and I cannot believe it. I'm going to say either all of them germinated or most of them did. I cannot believe this. So if you have a problem with rodents, I highly recommend you check out my rodent repelling bulb video. It works. I did 2 different techniques to repel rodents, and they both worked. So check it out if you have issues with rodents eating your bulbs. Here is the backyard vegetable garden in February. Let's take a look at what's happening. The kale is looking so beautiful. My broccoli plants are looking rather wilted. However, I do see a little floret. I'm going to taste test this. So we've had lots of snow, Arctic-like conditions, and I haven't eaten anything since after all of the snow. Let's see what it tastes like. We're going to do a little broccoli taste test. Fresh out of the garden that's been aged in snow and ice. Wow. That's a really nice flavor. Very mild, not the really strong broccoli flavor that sometimes isn't good. Very mellow and mild, really delicious. Let's take a look at some of my lettuce seedlings. It looks like they survived the snowfall. Not thriving, really. I mean, some are doing better than others, these lettuce seedlings. Some are doing much better than others, but can't complain because it is February and they do look like they're growing. So that is awesome. This was a little structure I constructed with garden wires to keep Supervisor out. It's already been deconstructed, but before he died, he actually did break in here and demolished my bok choy. So don't think I have any left, although that might be bok choy here, but I do have a bunch of kale seedlings in here, quite a few, and they're growing very well in the colder temperatures. And I have a ton of garlic sprouts. They are coming up here, there, and everywhere. More garlic over here. I'm probably gonna have about 70 cloves of garlic this year. Pretty crazy. More garlic at the back there, planted behind what is a pea trellis if the peas actually sprout. I did seed peas in here several weeks before the last snowfall, so time will tell if they sprout. You guys, I didn't know this, and I'm so excited. This was something that I did on the same day I constructed those pea trellises. I planted peas in these little containers which actually broke in the snow, but they are sprouting. I am so delighted. There's one here. I have a separate container over here. It also has a pea sprout. I have to assume that the reason that they're sprouting in the containers is because they were a little bit more protected and probably warmer from the container itself, providing a little bit of shelter. There are some green onions in here doing just fine. And holy smokes, look at this lettuce. It is really on fire with growth, and that is a really cool variety. Don't remember the name, but love the speckled leaves. Thank you so much for joining me on Garden Tour Saturday. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, and we will see you soon with another video. I hope you have a lovely day, evening, or night, wherever you are. Bye for now.